I think we're going to get started, and I hope I don't overpower the microphone here and the sound system. I'd like to welcome everybody and welcome to the first of the series of lectures for academic year 2021-22. It's been quite a while. We're finally able to get together after 2019-2020 was a truncated season, as you well know, canceled with lectures at the end of 2020, I should say the beginning of 2020. And we were able to do it using Zoom, and I personally think that it went quite well, all things considering. And here we're starting another academic year under the threat of COVID, and hopefully it will not be around very much longer. Just prior to a meeting, we had a board meeting in an adjacent room, and we met and elected an additional member to the board of directors by the name of Ronnie Spalding. And Ronnie, if you would be kind enough to stand up and be recognized as soon. I can't see a thing because of the okay. Very good, thank you. Yeah, I'm blind. A couple of things I'll mention is that our current membership is about 85, which is not too bad for the first lecture, and hopefully this will increase. And those of you who are not members, we encourage you to become a member because your dues go toward the scholarships. And if you have any changes in your contact information, be it email, telephone, or your residence, please let Norm Renault know that as soon as possible. And Norm was the person who was greeting you at the entrance just a short while ago. Before I turn the microphone over to Sandy Shakes, who is our scholarship chair, and she will introduce our current scholarship winner as well as today's speaker, I want to mention a few things that I think you will find of some interest. As you know, as onerous as it may be, masks are required for the time being inside the Ent Center. And social distancing is not required in the audience. In other words, originally the idea was if you're a couple, fine, and then, leave some seats. But now you can sit adjacent to one another. So that's one thing. Since the venue is new to all of us, as the site of the lectures for the foreseeable future, and perhaps forever, you should know that food and drinks are allowed in Chapman Hall. However, unlike previous years, coffee will not be provided, and treats that would normally be provided by members bringing the treats in, that's not allowed. But whether or not they will be able to open the concession stand for October, November, and the like is still under consideration. If you'd like to ask questions of Dr. Stidd, I've left the first row open. And if you know that you're going to have a question, if you would be kind enough to come down and sit in one of the seats here, and someone with a microphone will pass the microphone to you so that the microphone person doesn't have to traipse all over the hall seeking people with their hand up. You've already been informed that this and future lectures are going to be live, but in addition, they'll also be done on YouTube. We'll see how that works. It probably is very helpful for people who are handicapped and the like. And by the way, how did you like the parking situation? Yes, quite a thing, quite a thing. The lecture itself will start very shortly, and questions and answers will be limited in time to the contract we have with the Ent Center, since we have to vacate the premises, the hall, by 11:30 a.m. Okay. Now, if you have any questions, why don't you just hold them until after the lecture, and I'll be outside, and other members of the board will be outside, and they can answer the questions that you might have. And the last thing I would mention is something that you hear every year. Don't forget the dual purpose of Curiosity Unlimited. You know, during the past 40 plus years, we do want to satisfy your curiosity and your thirst for knowledge, but there are senior level students who greatly appreciate our scholarship program. It makes and can make all the difference in the world to them. And so, that said, I turn the microphone over to Sandy Shakes, our scholarship chair, and she will introduce the video provided by one of the scholarship winners for the current year. Sandy?
Ooh, that is bright. Well, thank you, Dan, very much. And I am so honored to introduce Summer Wilson, one of our scholarship recipients for the 21-22 school year. She's a senior at Uccs, and she's going to come to us via a taped video, and she's going to talk a little bit about her personal background, where she's kind of been, what she's studying, and what are her goals and aspirations she has for the future. And we ask that these videos only be a couple, about 2 to 3 minutes long. And so during that time, you are going to have the privilege of meeting Summer Wilson and get to know her and know that she is so appreciative and happy for the scholarship that we were able to give her and 3 other scholars. So please, without further ado, Summer Wilson.
Hello. Hello to the Curiosity Unlimited Board. My name is Summer Wilson, and I am a Colorado native. I am currently a senior at the University of Colorado, Colorado Springs, UCCS. I am pursuing a degree in secondary education with an emphasis in English and a minor in American Sign Language. Sign language is important to me so I can ensure that my father and I can communicate as his one good ear continues to deteriorate. Colorado Springs also has historical significance for the American deaf community due to the Colorado Springs School for the Deaf and Blind. I am completing my professional year, in which I am a teacher candidate, student teaching at Coronado High School and Eagle View Middle School. I also work at the UCCS Writing Center, which has been extremely rewarding. I love it. I will receive my license to teach middle school and high school English when I graduate in May of 2022. But I am still set on furthering my education. My long-term goal is to become a professor in the College of Education, as I would love to teach teachers how to teach. It would also mean the world to me to receive my Ph.D. from Harvard University, where my hominy and grandpa graduated. My great aunt and uncle own the JH Science Academy in South Korea, where they host summer robotics camps. It has always been a dream of mine to visit my family in Korea and to pay homage to my great Haraboji in the Seoul National Cemetery. Teaching English abroad and learning how to speak Korean are things I would love to check off my bucket list. Above all, I would like to stress the depth of my gratitude to the Curiosity Unlimited Board. UCCS has offered me a sense of community when I felt trapped in toxicity and dysfunction. I tell my students at Coronado that although I didn't make many friends in high school, I have found a family at UCCS. People who care enough about me to help me process my trauma and grow into a healthier, more independent person. As cheesy as it sounds, thank you for restoring my sense of hope, especially after the impacts of the pandemic. I consider my tale of trials and tribulations to be a success story that I hope will inspire my students. Education has been my saving grace, my sanctuary, and I feel a responsibility to my community to provide that space for other anxious adolescents. So, thank you so much for your time and for your support, and go Mountain Lions!
This will be very short. I'm Mary Kepp. I'm a member of the board, and in October, I'm going to be the liaison for our speaker. He's going to speak to us, Dr. Joseph Kuzma from the philosophy department, about cyborgs. As you can see in your brochure, he's listed. And we didn't know when we assigned that position to Dr. Joseph Kuzma that there's going to be a fantastic exhibit in the gallery just this way from us. And I've asked them to open it, if possible, by the end of the lecture, so you might want to check. But if that gallery isn't open today, it is open throughout October and November, so please make an opportunity to visit that exhibit just in this gallery next to us. There's also a lecture by the artist and a reception following that, and you can go on to the events at ENT and register for that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mary. I hope that the museum next door where the exhibit is will be open and we'll be able to see it to kind of give us a teaser and a taste of what we're going to have next month. But now that we're here and we're going to have the wonderful privilege of listening to Dr. Meghan Stidd. She is the Associate Dean of External Relations for the University of Colorado, Colorado Springs College of Business, where she oversees employer relations, career development, internships, alumni relations, executive education, and marketing initiatives. In her former role, Meghan served as the program director for the College of Business Career Development Center, where she managed the College of Business internship programs and assisted organizations interested in recruiting students for internships and full-time positions. Prior to her position at UCCS, Meghan served in multiple roles with Mountain Pacific Troops to teachers, spanning over 14 years with In her last position as regional director, Meghan led a 12-state region devoted to assisting military veterans during their transition to civilian life as public school teachers. And so it is my great pleasure to introduce Meghan, and she is going to be talking to us about, and we will learn about new initiatives with the UCCS Board of College of Business, and as for ways that we as the community and members of Curiosity Unlimited can be involved. So please, without further ado, let's welcome Dr. Meghan Stidd. Thank you.
That is very, very bright. I am usually on the other end of this. I help plan events for the College of Business, so I'm used to being in the audience or in the back. I'm not usually on the stage, so this is a treat for me today. Thank you so much for having me. So it seems like forever ago, I was at a different event with Sandy, and we shared a table and a meal together. We were having dinner, and I was just talking about the state of education, the college, what we have going on, some trends in higher ed. And little did I know that dinner conversation was going to lead to an invitation to speak to all of you today. But I'm very happy to be here. I didn't know about your organization until I got the invite, and I'm so excited that you're all here supporting scholarships for students. I actually have 3 degrees from Uccs, and my undergrad was paid fully by scholarships. And so as a former scholarship student, I can't thank you enough for supporting our students here today. So thank you. But I'm going to be talking to you about what we're doing to prepare our future business leaders in the College of Business. I'm going to start by just giving you a little background about me. So I'm the Assistant Dean, as Sandy said, for External Relations in the University of Colorado Springs College of Business, and I've been in that role for almost 3 years now. These are the departments that I oversee. So I'm looking at Alumni Relations, Executive Ed. Our Executive Ed programs, we're training people who are already working in the business community. So actually today, at the same time of this presentation, we're training a group of bankers on leadership development. And we also have open enrollment programs like our mini MBA through that program. Marketing, and then most pertinent to today's conversation is our Career Development Center, and specifically our career development program called the ROAR program, and we'll get into those details. And before I get into all that, I just want to share a little personal story with you all. So this picture isn't the greatest of quality because that was back in the day before we all had amazing cameras on our phones. I actually had to scan that photo in and put it in here. I didn't have a digital copy. But these are my parents. This is me on my commencement day when I got my undergraduate degree here from UCCS. And in high school and in college, I was always really, really involved. I did every activity I could possibly do. I was very focused on my grades, very focused on my GPA. And I would tell my mom all the time, this is going to look great on my resume. And I was just throwing things on my resume. But the issue was I didn't really know what I was preparing myself for, right? I just kept putting all these things on my resume, like this is going to look great, this is going to be good. But I never thought about what I actually wanted to do when I graduated. I was just very focused on coming to college for 4 years, graduating, and then, I'd have all these wonderful, amazing things on my resume so everybody in the world would want to hire me. I had a dual major, human resource management and marketing, with a minor in leadership studies. So again, all the things that I could put down. If I put down multiple majors and a minor, even better. And I did plan on entering the corporate world. So I was going to climb that corporate ladder, enter into business, and be a major business professional one day. That was my goal. But I didn't really plan my transition very well. So this was that's my first official headshot. Back in the day. But this is the work experience I had while I was coming to college. So I worked my way through. I had lots of jobs. I was a substitute teacher at the Colorado College Children's Center. I was the site director for the Children's Literacy Center. So at Colorado College, I was helping teach 4- and 5-year-olds. At the Children's Literacy Center, it was obviously elementary school students, helping them with reading. I was an administrative assistant for the Troops to Teachers program. That was my work study position, so I was answering phones, doing different things in the office. I worked for the El Pomar Foundation for about a year being a grant-making intern, so giving away Spencer Penrose's money, which was honestly the best job I think I've ever had. I love giving away money. I'd like to go back to that. And then I worked for the Colorado State Senate in the communications office, interning there. So you'll notice through my work experience, I didn't seek out a business internship. I didn't look for opportunities to be an HR intern or a marketing intern. I mean, the communications office is somewhat related, but not quite. It was more journalism than anything. But I was happy in all of these experiences. So I had this complete lack of self-awareness, right? I thought I was going to go out and be this corporate business executive, but all the work experience that I was gaining and everything that I wanted to do had to do with education, nonprofit management, working in government. I never really tested out the corporate business world. So when I graduated, these were the job offers I got. 2 weeks before graduation, I actually didn't have anything lined up because, again, I hadn't really planned very well. And so I did a bunch of networking. I went to as many career fairs as I could, and the economy was pretty good when I graduated, so I ended up with 3 job offers. So I got an offer from Target for the assistant team lead in their distribution center in Pueblo for $45 a year. USAA said I could come be a claims intern for $35, and then Troops of Teachers, where I was a program assistant, they were going to offer me $30, or where I was a work study student, they were going to offer me a program assistant position for $30,000 a year. And so I evaluated these job offers, sat there and looked at them, but the only thing I looked at was the big number, the salary that they were going to give me. So I took a job at Target for $45,000. And I didn't think about the fact that I was going to have to drive to Pueblo every day for that job. So what's the wear and tear on my vehicle? What does my mileage look like for that? What is cost of gas? Didn't think about any of that. Didn't think about the fact that I'd have to be at work at 6 a.m. And I am not a morning person. 6 a.m. is rough for me even today. Didn't think about that. I didn't think about the fact that in my business classes, I actually really didn't like my operations management courses or my supply chain management classes, which is all I did in that role. So I had this complete lack of self-awareness, totally focused on immediate monetary gain. I didn't look at the benefits packages that anybody had to offer. Didn't think about, if I was going to be happy in that job, if it aligned with my values and what I really wanted to do in life. So I stayed at Target for all of 90 days. That's as long as I lasted, was 90 days. I went to my supervisor at that 90-day period and I said, you know what? I'm done. I can't do this. This isn't me. I'm moving boxes for a living and I can't do it anymore. I mean, somebody has to move those boxes, right? We all need to go buy our shampoo and our food. It's a good fit for a lot of people, but for me, it was just not the right fit. So they said, okay, are you giving your 2 weeks notice? And I said, no, I'm going to leave right now. I'm done. I'm actually going to leave right now. Which I now advise my students against heavily, right? Like, you never just walk off the job. So they said to me, well, if you leave today without 2 weeks notice, you're never going to be eligible for rehire. I said, okay, I'm good with that. And again, not a good way to leave a job. So, because I have to giggle every time I walk into a Target now. It's the one place in the world I know I have a 0% chance of getting a job, right? I absolutely cannot work there. So as I'm walking around and seeing people stock the shelves, I'm like, yeah, I can't do that. I'm not eligible. Luckily for me, my old supervisor from Troops to Teachers called me and said, hey, I hear you hate your job and I hear you quit. I still have that program assistant role for you. Are you coming back or what? And I said, yeah, I think I'll take that $30,000 now. I think I'll come back. And I ended up staying there for almost 15 years. And the only reason I left was because the Department of Defense pulled the grant funding for the program and forced me to leave. But I really enjoyed the mission. I really enjoyed the purpose of that organization. And my values really aligned with what we were trying to do with our military veterans. And I more than made up for that $15,000 difference in salary at the end of the day. So I then, once the grant ended at Troops to Teachers, I moved over into the College of Business. I was looking for other work. I had made a career out of helping people with their careers, even though I had no planning when I was doing it myself. But I was able to turn that into an occupation for me. So I left Troops to Teachers and I became the Career Development Center Director for the College of Business, helping business students make that transition. And then more recently, I moved into my position as Assistant Dean. So some of you may know this. This is the vision of the College of Business. We are in the business of building successful futures. If you're ever in Dwyer Hall, this is all over the building. There's a plaque in pretty much every classroom. There's all in the hallways. You'll see our vision and our mission. And this is really our purpose. And so my goal, when I'm talking about preparing future business leaders, is help students avoid my pitfalls, right? Help students be prepared for that transition. I got really lucky. I only had to be miserable for 90 days before I fell into something that I enjoyed doing. But some students, if they don't prepare properly, they struggle, right? And they're in something that's not a good fit for them for quite a while. So when I became the director of the Career Development Center, and I'm thinking about building successful futures for students, these are some questions I started to think about. Well, who are the students, right? We have to understand who they are if I'm going to help them with this transition. What do the employers need? If we're prepping them for careers after graduation, what is it that the employers need? And what challenges exist? What barriers do I have to overcome to make that happen? So I'm going to share this with you, my thought process while we were going through this. So starting with the students, really understanding the students and who they are, these demographics came straight from our institutional research office. So these are the demographics of our student population. And we have a very, very diverse student population here at UCCS. So 71% of our undergraduate students receive some type of financial aid, so they need some support to finish their degree. 29% are first-generation students. So about a third of our students, they don't really have anyone at home who went through college who can help them with that process, who understands the academic system. So they need a little bit more support through that. 35% are ethnic minorities, 54% are female, 19% are military affiliated. And that's a little bit higher in the College of Business with our military affiliation. So my past experience working with transitioning veterans certainly helped me in that role. And then the majority of our students are working at least part-time. So we have a very, very diverse student population with unique needs, and they need some support as we get them through college. So looking at the employers now, understanding the workforce, what do the employers need? Well, I want to share some workforce trends with you, and some of these are probably not surprising. I'm sure you've heard of them before. But the first big future of the workforce is this automation, this component of automation. We're seeing a lot of jobs moving over to being automated by computer systems or robots. So I got some stats for you here. So according to Mercer's 2020 Global Talent Trends, 34% of employees expect their jobs to be replaced within 3 years. Right. So, and we're seeing that. We're seeing it in career services even. There's software programs out there that review resumes now. There's when you're recruiting, when employers are recruiting students, they have software programs that do the initial interview screenings. So you don't have to have someone screen the resume and and do the initial interview for students. It's all done by computers. And so these aren't just entry-level roles that are being automated. I mean, a lot are. Like in food service and manufacturing tend to be the most where we see that automation. But you can see it's even in the medical industry. Global medical robots market is projected to be, $12.6 billion by 2023. So it's hitting the medical industry too. So these aren't just, low-level, entry-level jobs that are being automated. It's at all different levels. And we're also seeing this gig economy, and COVID has attributed to the growth of this as well. But 36% of US workers are currently in the gig economy. So the gig economy is really disrupting the employer and employee relationship, right? Instead of hiring someone let's say to come in and do your marketing for your company, to handle all of your social media, they can hire somebody to just come in and run one campaign, right, as a gig. Just pay for a project. So it's really project-based pay. So independent contractors is what comes to mind here. So we're seeing more and more of that. And if the gig economy continues to grow at the current rate, it'll be about 50% of the US economy will be in the gig economy by 2027. So the world of work is really shifting. And we're also seeing some equity concerns when it comes to accessing the workforce and upper level jobs in the workforce. So I'll give you a couple of examples of what we're seeing with our students. We had one student who was a finance major, and very smart, working in the College of Business as a student employee. And one of my colleagues asked him one day, why aren't you looking for finance internships? Like when you graduate, you're going to want a finance internship on your resume so you can be competitive for jobs. So why aren't you looking for a finance internship? And he said, I don't have the money to buy professional clothes. I can't go out and buy a suit. I can't dress for an interview. I just don't have those resources. So I'm not trying to find, that internship. I don't feel confident that I can go out there and compete for that. And so I'll tell you a little bit later what we're doing to address those issues. Another issue with equity is with unpaid internships. So we have a lot of employers that, we're going to give students some really great experience through an unpaid internship. And they are going to get really great experience, but if you remember our student demographics, our students have to work their way through college. They can't afford to take an unpaid internship, and so they can't afford to take an opportunity with a great organization, even if it is wonderful experience. They're not going to be able to take advantage of that if it's unpaid, and they'll take a job that's not related to their career that's going to help them pay their way through college. So those are some of the equity concerns we're seeing. But we're also seeing a lot of emerging jobs and industries. So in the last 15 to 20 years, there are all kinds of new jobs that just didn't exist before, right? So my degree, as I mentioned, was a dual major in marketing and human resource management. Well, when I got my marketing degree, social media was just emerging. Well, now we have whole careers that are surrounding or around social media managers, search engine optimization managers, all this whole line of careers kind of emerged from that. Another example would be a blockchain analyst. Blockchain's very new, and those jobs never existed before. There's something called a listening officer now, where it is just someone's job to listen to what the customers are saying, listen to what the employees are saying and competitors, and gather all that information and try to make sense of all of it so that they can make changes and be more competitive. And then there's some others on this list, but this list is certainly not exhaustive. There are a lot of new jobs out there that just didn't exist 10 to 15 years ago. So we have this really rapidly changing workforce where jobs are being automated and other jobs are being created, and we're seeing this disruption in the employer-employee relationship. So when we're talking about preparing future business leaders, it's difficult to wrap our minds around what are we preparing them to do, right? We're preparing them for jobs that might not exist yet. So we have to focus on some of the skills that are very transferable, focus on what we typically call the soft skills, although I have an employer who says they're not soft skills, they're the skills, right? We have to focus on communication, focus on problem solving, things that are going to be transferable as this world of work shifts. And we still don't know what work is going to look like post-COVID. So it's a little bit uncertain about what we need to prepare students for in the workforce at this time. So we have a really diverse student population already. We don't really know what the employers are going to need in 5 to 10 years, right? It's a little uncertain. And so now let's look at some of the challenges that exist when thinking about this. So we have a changing workforce, like I mentioned, but we have some disruptors in higher education because of it too. So these are all the top companies, and this list is not exhaustive either. These are just some examples of top companies that are no longer requiring a degree. They're saying, you know what, you don't need a 4-year degree. Google came out and said, we don't care. You don't have to have a degree. You just have to have the skills. And you can apply for upper level management positions without a degree. Same thing at Tesla, IBM, Apple. All these companies are coming out and saying, we don't mind if you don't have that piece of paper. And you see Whole Foods and Publix up there, and Costco's on this list too, where you don't necessarily have to have a degree to start working at any of their entry-level roles, but even for their upper management roles, they're not requiring the degree anymore. So as an institution of higher education, we need to make sure that we still offer value, which I do believe we offer a great value to students, but if the employers, we need to offer a value that is important to those employers as well. We're also seeing an increased cost of higher education. So in the early 2000s, state funding covered about 68% of a student's education, and students were responsible for about 32%. And by 2011, that flipped. So students are really carrying the burden and the cost of their education. And the cost of higher ed is rising more than twice the rate of inflation. So we have these employers saying, you know what, you don't have to have a degree anymore. Experience is fine, as long as you have the skills and abilities. And we're having students look at this and say, man, that degree is costing more and more. It's really expensive to get a degree these days. And we're seeing a reduction in state funding too. Here at UCCS, only about 6% of our budget is provided by the state. So we might be a state institution, but most of our budget comes from tuition and auxiliary funds. And that's why these scholarship programs are so important, right? So students can come in and help, or students have the financial support they need to pay for the cost of this higher education. So we have this weakening value proposition in higher ed. Employers are saying, You don't have to have the degree. Students are saying, wow, that degree is really expensive, and the state is reducing our funding. So we need to be able to convince employers and students that coming here and getting a degree from UCCS is still incredibly valuable, and we need to work on strengthening that value proposition. So these are the key issues, as I see it, after going through all that. It's a little depressing. I promise it gets better. It's not all depressing. I promise. That's not. We'll get to the fun stuff in a little bit. It's not all gloom and doom. So we have this diverse population with varying needs, a rapidly changing workforce, and this need to improve our value proposition. So I did all of this within about the first 6 months of my role as the Career Development Center Director, looking at all of this. And so I was thinking, man, what do I do now? What did I do? Why did I take this job? Why am I here? Well, I am an academic. My Ph.D. is in educational research, educational leadership research and policy. And so I like to look at a theoretical framework to kind of help me understand issues and give me the context to really evaluate what we can do. So this is my go-to theory when I talk about student transition and helping people transition from the workforce or from college to the workforce. And I use this with my military veterans too when I was working at Troops to Teachers. So this is Schlossberg's transition theory. That is a mouthful. But there are 4 S's under this theory that we can use to evaluate someone's transition. So the first is a situation. So what triggered this transition? What's the timing, the stress, the duration of the transition? So for a traditional student who's coming straight from high school to get a 4-year degree, and they knew that this was going to be their path, right? The timing's pretty good. They knew it was coming up. They're graduating, you go to college, that's what you do. The trigger isn't a negative trigger, right? It's kind of a happy time. It might be stressful, but it's expected. That's not true for all students. Remember, 19% of our student body is our military veterans. Well, some of our military veterans, they're injured, right? They might have a medical discharge or a medical retirement, and it wasn't an expected transition, and it's really, really stressful. And so it's a little more difficult for them. And the chances of a successful transition when you're in that type of situation where it was unexpected and it's incredibly stressful, it makes it a little more difficult to transition successfully. The next S is self, and so this is characteristics that make someone who they are, or how a person feels about themselves. So this is your age, your gender, your socioeconomic status. And then for psychological, it's really someone's optimism, their resiliency, their spirituality. If someone has a really positive outlook on life, it's more likely that they'll have a successful transition. The next S is support. So this is where the family, friends, and community come in, right? How many people are around you supporting you through the process? And last is strategies. And so this is what actions are you taking to help change your situation to make things better? And so I like to use this framework when I'm thinking about how to help transition students from college to career and help build successful futures for them. But I like to make one change to it. So in my research, I modify it a little bit, and I use what's called applied transition theory. And so this is my own making in my version of transition theory. But when I'm applying transition theory to help students, it's all about strategies for me. Like, strategies are the foundation. So I can't really change someone's situation. I can't change why they're coming to college, what triggered that transition. I mean, I can help support them and try to make them feel better or be more optimistic about themselves and their situation. And I can certainly help build a community of support. I can't really change their situation, though, but I can develop strategies to help strengthen those 3 pillars, right? I have full control over the strategies that I help students implement. So for me, when you're applying transition theory as a practitioner, as an educational administrator, as a teacher, you're really focusing on the foundation of strategies so that you can strengthen all those pillars and lead to a successful transition. So this is how I think about it in my mind. So this is the fun part. This is the happy part, where we get to start building successful futures. So once I had it kind of situated in my mind, did a lot of research, got to the part where we got to really make a difference for students. So this was a process that we took at the college. We needed to start by assessing our student and workforce needs, which I spent some time doing my own research, but we had focus groups and surveys with our students to really listen hear what they needed, listen to our alumni, like what did they want? What did they wish they had when they were in college that would have helped them? We always had an advisory board for our dean, and we had an advisory board for our employers that were involved in the Career Development Center. But each one of our departments also created an advisory board. So our marketing department, our accounting and finance department, our sport management department, they all created advisory boards of industry professionals who are out there working every day within their given field, and they impact our curriculum. So they share with us, this is what we need. This is what students really need to learn. This is how our industry has changed. These are the things we need from you now. And so that was very powerful and helpful as we started looking at our curriculum and what we could do to help the workforce and make sure our students were prepared. We also developed programming to meet those needs. So once we listened, we developed some academic program and provided some student services, and I'll get in more detail about that. And the important part is to continue to provide support and adjust the programs as needed, right? So we haven't stopped listening. We're still listening, and it's ongoing. I do an exit interview with pretty much every College of Business student just to hear what they have to say. And I think we're going to turn that into more of a survey moving forward, because it's exhausting at the end of the semester for me to meet with every business student. But we're gathering that information still, and we're helping to make sure that we understand what the students need. So these are the changes we made. This is to address the workforce needs, and this was mainly our faculty listening to those boards, hearing what they have to say, looking at innovative programs that we could implement. So we started our Colorado Cybersecurity Apprenticeship Program, also called CCAP. It's a $6 million grant that we received from the Department of Labor to help prepare the next generation of cybersecurity professionals. This is not a degree program. This is an undergrad certificate program. So they don't have to come and get the full degree. Remember, the employer said, we don't necessarily care about the full degree. We just want to make sure that students have the skills needed. Well, this is a response to that, where they are in an apprenticeship, where they are learning about cybersecurity on the job, and they're taking some cybersecurity classes at the same time. And if they want to continue and get a 4-year degree, we'll take all the courses that they've done through their certificate program, and we'll apply them to a 4-year degree, but they can still find a meaningful job in cybersecurity management, even without the full degree. We did add several cybersecurity management degree programs, because as you know, Colorado Springs is a hub for cybersecurity, and Uccs has really worked across disciplines to develop cybersecurity programming. So in the College of Business, we own the cybersecurity management programs. And so in addition to the certificate program, we also created an undergraduate degree, a master's degree, and we're offering the first doctoral program in the College of Business called the EDBA, the Executive Doctorate of Business, hold on, let me get this right, Executive Doctorate of Business Administration with an emphasis in cybersecurity management. And that program just launched this fall. We also added a digital strategy and new media marketing track to our marketing program. So this is specifically to help students understand the new marketing tools and strategies that they need to know in this day and age of marketing and social media marketing and all of that. We launched our first social entrepreneurship class. So this is businesses doing good, right? Businesses that have a social impact in their mission. So organizations that maybe donate some of their profits to charity, or you buy a pair of shoes and we donate a pair of shoes, those types of businesses. We offer a social entrepreneurship course now, and if that's popular enough, we may consider adding a full minor. But so far, students have been enjoying that class, and it's an elective. They can use it as an elective. And most recently, we're working with the real estate industry. Our real estate partners have come to us and said, we'd really like to see a real estate program in the College of Business, something related to real estate management. And so we are very much in the exploration stage of that. Nothing has been confirmed, or we haven't launched any degree programs or anything like that. But we're looking at what the needs are of the construction industry and the real estate industry, and how can we prepare students for that. So those are some of our academic programs. And here's where we bring in our career support for our student needs. So we really started listening to our students and what they wanted to do. And our students said, it'd really be great if we had an understanding of career pathways. We want some more networking opportunities, some industry mentors, opportunities to apply our classroom knowledge in the real world. Need some help with resume writing and interview preparation. And it'd really be great if career development was integrated into the curriculum. So at this time, I was the director of the Career Development Center, and I'm like, we do all of these things. I do all these things, right? But looking at the data, only 30% of the students were actually taking advantage of it. And so the 70% that were not taking advantage of the services of the Career Development Center, we honed in on them and said, why? If you say it's something you need, why aren't you coming? And it had to do a lot with time. You know, go back to think about our student demographics. They're working, they're busy. We have a decent amount of non-traditional students that, you know, are either working full-time, some have families at home. So they're coming here and coming to class, and that's about all they can commit to. So if it's outside of class time, it's probably not going to happen. And so we decided to integrate career development into the curriculum. So it was actually in the classes. They wouldn't have to take time out of their day. It'd be part of their coursework. And that's what we did. So we created 3 one-credit-hour classes that are related to career development. And this counts in the degree program when you're looking at what it takes to get a business degree. There's some open electives, right? There's some places for elective credit. So we took away a 3-credit-hour elective and put in the career programming instead. And so the first class, and this is my project, this is my baby. I spent several years putting this together, and it launched in fall of 2019. And it's called the ROAR program. And ROAR is an acronym. It stands for Relationships, Opportunity, Acumen, and Readiness. And these 3 one-credit-hour classes, in phase 1, we call it Find Your ROAR, and that's all about career exploration, right? Keeping students who are not meant to go to Target from going to Target is essentially what that entire class is about. And that's offered in the freshman year. Phase 2 is all about career confirmation. We call it Refine Your ROAR. So we have students complete an internship requirement during that time, and I'll talk about the options for that in a moment. But we also help with professionalism during this phase. So resume writing, interview prep, how to look for opportunities, and we offer lots of ways that they can connect with employers. So just next week, we'll host our career networking night. It's our first in-person career networking night since the pandemic. And we have a little over 50 employers coming to campus looking to hire our students. So we're really excited to be able to do that in person again. And phase 3 is Ready to ROAR, and that is our career transition. Sorry, I have career confirmation on there twice. That's our career transition phase. And so that is senior year. Phase 3 is in their senior year. And we partner them with an industry mentor. So we match students based on their interests with someone who's actually working in that field and doing what the student would like to do, so they can get that insider knowledge. So for example, I had a student who really wanted to be a forensic accountant. I know nothing about forensic accounting. Big fat zero, don't know how to do that. But we did find a forensic accountant in the community who came alongside her and really helped support her in that transition. And just a couple semesters ago, I had a student who was interested in aviation. Again, I don't really know a whole heck of a lot about aviation and business degrees in aviation. So we partnered this student with someone at the Colorado Springs Airport who was really able to help him transition and find a good role. So that mentorship program is by far the student's favorite class in this series and is the most impactful. It takes a lot of time and energy, but it's well worth it in the end, and the students really get that insider information that they need to make that transition successful. Also, in this program, we developed different tracks. So I talked about a diverse student population that had varying needs. And so we didn't want to create a program that was just for traditional students coming from high school into college. We wanted to make sure that everyone would gain something from this program. So within those 3 classes, we have 3 tracks. And the track 1 is career exploration. That's the track I needed, right? I needed to do some self-reflection, figure out what was going to be a good fit for me. So that's more for traditional students coming straight from high school. Track 2 is all about career progression. And so this is for people who are maybe non-traditional students, already working in their area of interest, already working in industry, and they're looking to get their degree to take them to the next level. So we focus on what's next for you. How are you going? Where would you like to be in your career moving forward, and how can we get you there? And then track 3, we had several students that were either already working in their own organization or wanting to start their own business. And we love entrepreneurs and we want to support that. So we partnered with the Small Business Development Center here in Colorado Springs, and those students actually start building their business their freshman year. So they start working on their business plan, they start working on their marketing plan. We make sure that they form their business correctly, that they're registered with the Secretary of State, that they have all the licenses and certifications and everything that they need to operate legally. And the goal is for when they graduate, that they just step into their own company and they have their business up and running. So these are our 3 tracks within the program. And then I mentioned the internship component. So we call it our experiential learning requirement. So students have to complete 150 hours of work in their desired career field. So this can be a past experience. So for students who already have some work experience under their belt and they're looking for that career progression, we'll look at some past experience and accept that for that 150 hours. It can be a new experience. So for traditional students who don't have experience in their industry, we'll help them find an internship. It can be a part-time job, it can be a full-time job, it can be a volunteer service learning type of role. We're really, really flexible in what that position looks like. We just want them to have something that relates to their career on their resume when they graduate so that they can be marketable. And then I'm going to bring it back around to the equity issue that I talked about earlier. So these are some programs we developed specifically to address equity issues. So professional attire, I gave you the example of the finance student who couldn't afford to purchase a suit. Well, that day, the employee that he told he didn't have, professional attire, she went home and got one of her husband's suits and brought it to him and said, "Here, this is yours now, and you go get that internship." So from there, we opened up a clothing closet where we accepted donations from the community for professional clothing, and we allowed students to come in and take the clothing that they needed. And that closet started in the College of Business. It has now grown and expanded, and it's included in the new career center that they're opening for the entire campus. So we're really happy to see that expand. But we found another issue with that plan. We don't always have the size somebody needs, or maybe the style that they'd like, that they would feel comfortable in. So we partnered with JCPenney, and we hosted an event called the Suit Up event. And students can receive 60% off professional clothing at JCPenney. And we also have businesses and individual donors who provide us with $100 clothing stipends. So we're just in the process now of accepting applications for these stipends for the fall. We have over 50 applications, and we only have 9 stipends to give. So we definitely don't have as many stipends as we need, but we are able to clothe students. And it's one of my favorite events we've been doing it virtual the last couple semesters, but when we first launched it, it was actually at the JCPenney store. They would close the store for 3 hours and leave it open just for UCCS students to shop. And for $100 at 60% off, students would leave with piles of clothes. They would have more than one outfit. So I always felt like Santa because I was there with my procurement card just purchasing $100 stipends for students. So that's how we dealt with the professional attire issue. And remember, with our student population, most of them are working, and 70% of them that weren't utilizing our services before said, "Man, I just don't have the time to come to the Career Development Center. It's really difficult for me to get there." So we have several on-demand tools available for students now. So I also mentioned automation. We've automated some of our services. So we have resume writing and interview prep services that are on demand 24/7. So we partnered with a company called Quincia, and they have a software program that will screen resumes just like a lot of major employers use, the applicant tracking system. So it'll screen resumes, it'll flag errors for them, it'll highlight areas where they could improve their writing, and the bullet points really provide recommendations on how they can quantify them and make it more meaningful for employers. And we also have an interview software platform where the computer will do a virtual interview with students. And again, a lot of employers are using this as well. And the interview software actually reads your resume. So if my resume was in there, they'd say, "Hey, Megan, I hear you got a bachelor's degree from UCCS in Human Resource Management. What was your favorite HR class and why?" And so it'll pull data directly from the resume and ask questions, and then analyze the student's response, tell them how many words they were speaking per minute, how many filler words they used, and if they actually answered the question or not. So our students are able to access this 24/7, so they can practice interviewing at any time, and it doesn't have to be just when the Career Development Center is open. And of course, we still offer our services and one-on-one support to students as well, but this is just another option for students that they didn't have before. And just this fall, we started offering grants for unpaid internships. So we had enough donors to offer $20,000 in grants over this academic year to help support unpaid internships. So students apply for it, and we award them with the stipend directly. It's currently a pilot program this year. We're going to see how it works. And it's for internships at nonprofit organizations or government entities is what we're limiting it to at the moment. And for our for-profit employers, if they're offering an unpaid internship, we just take the time to educate them on our student body and really encourage them to pay at least minimum wage for those opportunities, so that they can get some really great candidates, a diverse candidate pool, and provide our students with some opportunity. So bringing it back to transition theory, because I talked about how it's all related to this applied transition theory. So those were all the strategies we developed to help create successful futures and prepare our future business leaders. So we have some innovative certificate and degree programs for students that are based on what the industry told us they need. We have the customized career curriculum, which really comes along and helps students with that self and support pillars there. And we have a whole career community now to provide support to these students. So the entire industry kind of comes together and helps support our students. And then we have the financial support as well. So this is what we have done so far. So these were the issues that I brought up at the very beginning. So to help meet our diverse student population, we have a wide variety of programs, customized career curriculum, and financial support, and those online on-demand tools. For the changing workforce needs, we're constantly seeking input from industry and being as flexible as we can with our degree programs and our curriculum. And as for our value proposition, we just keep offering innovative programs and giving that ongoing student support with the industry involvement. When I'm talking to prospective students and their parents, the ROAR program is something that they really, especially the parents, the students, I don't think they know that they need it as much as they do, but the parents are like, oh my gosh, this is amazing, right? And so really just providing value in that support and that career development piece is where we're differentiating ourselves from others. So you can't get me in a room in front of people and not expect me to ask you for something. So this is where I ask you how you can help. So I know many of you are retired, but we are always looking for employers to recruit our students for internships or full-time opportunities after they graduate. And we provide career support to alumni throughout their careers. So once someone graduates from UCCS, they can come back at any time to the Career Development Center and say, hey, I need help finding a job. And we've seen that, and we've seen that a lot during COVID, where some of our alumni have lost their jobs during this time, and they come back to us and say, okay, I need some help. And so we provide that continued support. But if you know of anyone, or if you have a need to recruit talent, please come talk to me. I'd love to talk to you about what our students have to offer and see how I can help. And that's not just true for the College of Business, right? I can help connect to other colleges too. We all work together to get employers the talent that they need. We always need mentors. So we have a whole database of industry mentors, and we do our best to match students with a mentor that is directly related to their industry. So if you're willing to share your knowledge with a student, we'd love to talk to you about being a mentor. Or if you know somebody in the business community who you think would be a good mentor, please share this information and talk to them about that. And outside of this, there are so many options to volunteer at UCCS. The UCCS Alumni Association manages a volunteer hub, and it's at that website, alumni.uccs.edu/volunteer. And if you go to that website, you will see opportunities across campus. So our mentorship opportunity in the College of Business is on that website, but there are options across campus for you to volunteer and get engaged with our students even more so than you already are, because obviously you're here because you care about students and you're helping with student scholarships. So we appreciate you, and if you want to get more involved, there's options for that. That is all I have for you all today, and I'm happy to entertain any questions that you might have of me. Anybody? I answered everything. You don't have any questions.
What were the words for roar?
Oh, sure. So roar, well, now I don't have my notes in front of me, so now I have to remember it off the top of my head. Relationships, acumen, opportunity, and readiness. Well, I had them in the wrong order, but yes, those are the words.
If someone wanted to make a gift, if someone wanted to make a gift to support the clothing stipend, how would they do that?
Oh, that's a great question. Thank you for asking. It's a $100 check per student. That full $100 goes straight to the student, and it's just to the College of Business. And they can contact me directly, and I'd be happy to do that. And there's an online website you can go to as well. But
so they could make it through the giving.cu.edu website?
They can, and it would be a gift to the Career Development Center, the College of Business Career Development Center. And in the notes, you would just mention in the notes that it's for a clothing stipend. And the full $100 will go to a student who's in need of professional clothing. Thank you.
For our online listeners, I just want to mention that you do have the opportunity to ask questions as well. Just use the chat function. It'll show up on the phone here in about 30 seconds, and I can ask the question for you.
How do you interact with the industries to find out what their changing needs are?
Yeah, so that's mainly through our advisory boards. So each one of we have a lot of boards in the College of Business, but it's mainly through our advisory boards with our departments. So, for example, our accounting and finance board just met. I think it was last month or so, and we talked about any changes to the curriculum that we've made and listened to what they need as an industry and what emerging technologies are they seeing in accounting, how can we change our curriculum to meet their goals. So we actively seek input through our board, through the different department boards. And then in the Career Development Center, we're working with employers all the time. They're posting positions to our campus job boards, they're coming to our recruitment events, and they'll share information with us. They're very open with me and my colleague who's now the assistant director for the Career Development Center, and they'll tell us exactly what they need. You know, like, hey, I hired a student, or I've been hiring your interns for 2 years now, and I really wish they knew this, and we'll go back and take that to the faculty and adjust our programs as needed.
Can you share some success stories or pleasant surprises?
With that particular, with the employers, or just
with your program?
With our program. Yeah, we have one student who came to this country as a refugee, and she was in the foster care system here in Colorado, and she was able to come to Uccs, fully funded for her. She ended up getting her undergraduate degree and moving on to her Master of Science in Accounting degree, and she now works for an accounting firm in Denver, and she's doing amazing things. And I was in a meeting with her once, and she said, man, Meghan, well, Dr. Stidd, she doesn't call me Meghan, even though I told her to. she said, "You're such an inspiration to me." And I was like, "Are you kidding me?" Like, she lived in a refugee camp for years and built her own business making jewelry at that time. I mean, she's an amazing student. So I'm like, "You're inspired by me? Like, I've done nothing in my life. Like, you're amazing." So that's one example of a success story. And we've been seeing, I think one of the biggest successes in our career development side of the house is a lot of the major employers, like a lot of big financial firms like Goldman Sachs, or even we now have a relationship with the CIA. Like, we're starting to see some really large employers wanting to recruit from UCCS, employers that used to only go to Boulder or go to some of the top name schools. We've been developing relationships with them, working with them very closely, getting 1 or 2 students hired here or there, and now we're seeing them, come to our career networking nights and actively recruit from the university, which is really exciting for us to see some of those big names. I mean, we love supporting our local business community and hiring with our local employers, but it's really neat to see, like Google and Amazon and some of these bigger companies getting involved. And it's encouraging for our students to see that some of their colleagues are getting job offers and internships at these big name companies.
How have you varied your strategies for the youngster and for the middle-aged person, the differing ages at the university, and for a person seeking their first career and a person coming back for their second or third career?
How do we vary our services?
Your strategies, your services. Yes.
Yeah, so we spend a lot of time, in our ROAR program, we have those different tracks. But when someone comes to us and they need support, we spend a lot of time in the first appointment just listening, right? So I have an appointment this afternoon where I'll spend an hour with a student just talking to them about their needs, what they want to do, their goals. And then we build, especially through the ROAR program, the students build a personalized career plan, like where they're at now, where they want to be, 5 to 10 years from now. And we have a wide variety of resources, online, like assessments, things that we can do for students. And it's more about making those connections to industry for those particular students. So if they want to do something that we don't, like the student example I gave where I had a student that wanted to be a forensic accountant, if we don't have those relationships, we don't tell them like, "Oh, well, we don't have anybody who does that, we can't help you." I'm like, "That's very interesting. I've never had a student want to do that before. Let me figure out how to help you with that," right? And so I think that's where we don't really say no to our students. We come alongside them and support them and help them. So commencement day is my favorite day of the year, because if you go to the World Arena for commencement, all the graduates are in the basement standing in line and waiting to go out. And I get to stand at the entrance as all the College of Business students are walking out and get all the high fives and all the hugs, and it makes me tear up thinking about it, because I cry with moms, right? They'll sit there and be like, my child's told me all about you and everything you helped them with, and I'll sit there and cry with them on commencement day. So, but yes, we are very individualized with our service and provide that one-on-one support that students need.
Thank you for the great program. Yeah. If there is there a way, if we had a group of people, 4 or 5, 10 or 11, who might want to gather and take advantage of this, is this been recorded, or is there a way this program is documented or on file? I have several friends in mind right now, I think, who would love to know what you're doing.
I'm happy to talk to anybody. I love to talk. Yes. I will talk to anyone. But if you want to share it, that'd be great too. But if there's anyone that, my colleagues joke with me because they're like, "Will you really have coffee with anybody?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'll really sit down and have coffee with absolutely anybody, or lunch or whatever." So I'm happy to speak with anyone, but I do believe they're recording it that you could share.
Yes, it is being recorded, so it will be available. Is that correct, Deanne? Yes. On YouTube. Mm-hmm.
No, thank you for sharing. I really appreciate it. Any other questions? Well, I just really appreciate all of you and your support of students and your time today, and I'm happy to speak with any of you individually if you'd like. But I just really appreciate you all being here, and it's nice to see people in person again. So thanks for coming to campus, and thank you for having me.
Thank you so much, Meghan. A very interesting program, one that I think UCCS should be very, very proud of, especially in its competition with Boulder. Maybe we'll become victorious before too long. I'd just like to thank you all for coming and starting off this new adventure, and it is a new adventure. Who would have thought you'd be sitting in an audience in a lecture hall that is not a room at UCCS? It's quite different, and the parking is great. I want to mention that the gallery that Mary talked about, which is right next door, is open at 11. So if you have a chance, you can stop by because it has something to do with the lecture that will be provided next month in October, having to do with cyborgs. Thank you all for attending. Drive carefully on the way home, and make sure that you beat the heat. Thank you.